can actually earn money for sense gratification according to the Varnashram principles, and then it's not an obstruction. Then it will help you to advance towards liberation. And so here in the purport it describes 4 principles of Varnashram civilization, or 4 types: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So for those who are businessmen, vaishyas, and grihastas, married people, artha is very important. That means they want to economic development. They have to get money. But actually, in the Varnashram system, the vaishyas and the grihastas have to maintain the other 3 ashrams, sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and brahmacharis. They're not meant for making money. But actually, all the 4 ashramas in the Varnashram system must engage in charity. We have the brahmacharis, the grihastas, the vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. Gita says acts of charity, penance, and sacrifice should not be given up. Even the great souls do these things because it's for purification of heart. So what do the brahmanas give us? They give us knowledge. The grihastas, they should be satisfied, brahmana grihastas, they're satisfied with teaching and studying and teaching, doing deity worship, teaching deity worship, giving in charity, accepting charity. So what do the Kshatriya grihastas do? What charity do they give? They give land to the Vaishyas and to the Brahmanas. So the Vaishyas get the land from the kings and they can grow crops to feed the whole society. And the Vaishyas also give their wealth to help festivals and projects. And what do the Shudras give? What is their charity? They give their service to the others. So, but unfortunately nowadays we have the ugra karma. We have karma without religion. We have artha without dharma. We have artha only for kama. And this is the cause of agitation within everyone's mind. As we described yesterday, factory is like another word for hell. It's like hell. So Prabhupada, he wanted the Daiva Varnashram society. And in this society, the basis of the society of Varnashram is actually love. In Bhagavatam it is said, Atapumbi Tijashista Varnashrama Vibhakashaha Sanastita Shatarvasya Samsidir Haritoshana. That this Varnashram society is based on pleasing the Lord. Samsidir Haritoshana. An example is there. In this 4th canto, we are talking about Prithu Maharaj in the 21st chapter, text number 25. Prithu Maharaj is instructing the citizens, and he's saying, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should execute your duties properly in terms of your position of Varna and Ashram, and always think of the Supreme Lord in your hearts. In doing this, you'll protect your own interest, and you'll give mercy to your king for his welfare after death. Now, isn't that interesting? What reason is he telling his citizens they should do their Varnashram? He's saying it's good for you, and it's good for me. Well, why should they care if it's good for him? Nowadays, who cares about the president or the prime minister? Who cares about what they know he's getting taken care of very nicely? But in those days, everything was based on love. The Varnashram was based on love. Please do your Varnashram out of love for me. It will help me after my death. And it will be good for you also. So this is a very interesting application of the Varnashram principles. It is not something that is forced upon people, that you have to do this. It doesn't matter what your position is or what your talents are. You must do this. You are this. This is your body is this. No, it's based on love. According to your quality, guna, and your karma. So another thing is that the varnas and ashrams are interdependent. The citizens depended for protection and instruction on the king, and the king was depending on the citizens for following Varnashram. That would help him. So, Daiva Varnashram is with connection to Krishna, and the goal is to please Krishna. As Maharaj Prithu also said, that you should do your duties and think of Krishna in your heart. So this is the difference between Daiva, spiritual Varnashram, and Asuric Varnashram, the connection to Krishna. Beginning of creation, Lord Brahma created this Varnashram. His body was the Brahmanas, they are the head. Kshatriyas were the arms, the Vaishyas were the belly, the Shudras were the legs. So just like the arms, they depend on the eyes and the brain for direction. Without direction, what will the arms do? Where will the legs go? So Prithu, he's showing the example that he's the Kshatriya, he's begging blessings from the Brahmanas, the sadhus. They give us visions where to go in life. With our eyes we can see. If someone attacks us and we're blind, how can we protect ourselves? And how will the legs see to go, in which direction? So the Brahmanas guide the society where to go, back to Godhead. And without the Brahmanas, which is what we have society now, the blind are leading the blind, and they fall into a ditch. So the duties of the king is to protect citizens from danger and give employment also. Now in America there's a big problem, USA, with unemployment. 50 million people are living on food stamps, over 50 million. They don't have money for food in America. I know, because my son was one of them until he got a job. But then once you make $1,500 a month, even though he had a wife and a child, they say, okay, you don't need money anymore. But just for rent, that's what you pay. So, yes, it's very difficult. Unemployment is there in the USA, and I think it might be also in Europe too, some unemployment. But they take better care of their citizens. So the purpose of the Varnashram is everyone should be employed. Everyone has something to do. And in the Asuric Varnashram, the Kshatriyas, they take the taxes and they neglect the rest of the body. And they will suffer if they do this. So in Daiva Varnashram, we have material and spiritual protection by the king. He protects the heart where Krishna lives. So Yudhishthira, when he was king, not only the citizens cooperated with him, it's said in Bhagavatam in the first canto, 10th chapter, the rivers, the oceans, the hills, the mountains, the forests, the creepers, in every season paid their tax quota to the king. So because the king was Krishna conscious, not only the people paid tax, but the hills paid tax, the rivers paid tax, water tax. They were flowing with very nice clean water, not like nowadays. So everything in creation has a service to perform in the universal form. We are all a part, everything in this creation is part of the universal form of the Lord. And when we all serve Krishna, then we're in harmony. So Prabhupada explained out there, there's so many trees, there's so many weeds and vegetables, and they all have a purpose, actually. We don't know what these weeds, they're medicine, in Ayurvedic medicine, they know the purpose of all these different weeds. Just like in Vrindavan, one of our devotees, he got bit by a scorpion. And so one devotee who knew the weed, knew the different plants, he ran out, he got a plant and brought it back and gave it to him, and within 4 hours he was okay, he didn't die from the scorpion bite. So everything has a purpose. Not only had a purpose, there was a culture of respect. The Varnas and ashrams all respected each other. They saw themselves as servants of Krishna. So Prabhupada explained that the Brahmana, he was called Panditji, Panditji Maharaj. The Kshatriya was addressed as Thakurji, and the merchant as Sethji, and the laborer as Chaudhary, which means leader. We think, oh, he's a Shudra, he's just servant. No, he was called Chaudhary, oh dear leader. And if you read Ramayana, when Maharaj Janaka wanted to do a sacrifice, the Shudra who knew how to plow the field, he could tell where to plow, so that it would be an auspicious place to do the sacrifice. So everybody was respected in the Varnashram system. How do you address the Brahmanas in the Varnashram? Maharaj Dasharath was once receiving Vishwamitra. This is in Ramayana. Vishwamitra came to visit Maharaj Dasharath, who was the father of Lord Rama. And Maharaj Dasharath said, Ainistam yatta punarjanma jayaya. How are you doing in your endeavor to conquer the repetition of birth and death? So that's what he asked the Brahmana, because the Brahmana is endeavoring towards moksha. Srila Prabhupada said that a Brahmana, he does not go to construct a big house. He simply constructs his character. Because that's how you tell who's a Brahmin, by his character. Shamo Damo Tapat Shocham Arjavam Shantir Arjavam Jnana Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Savavajam. Controlling the senses, controlling the mind, religiousness, knowledge, wisdom, these are, and forbearance, these are the qualities of a Brahmin, the character. And so how to greet a Kshatriya? If you meet it, of course you won't meet many Kshatriyas nowadays, but in Bhagavatam, the sages, Angira and Narada Jaya, were meeting Chitraketu. And they said to him, I hope your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are well. I hope your guru, your kingdom, your fort, your treasury, and your friends are all in order. How is your defense? In other words, how is your treasury? Because this is the important things for the king. How's your body? How's your mind? And the Vaishyas, how do you greet a Vaishya? Of course, nowadays it would be house business. But in Bhagavatam, previously, the Vaishyas were taking care of cows. So when Vasudeva went to meet Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, no, Nanda went to meet Vasudeva in Mathura. Vasudeva said, how are your animals? How are your cows? Are they happy? Are they getting enough grass and water? And is your place undisturbed and peaceful? Because the Kshatriyas were meant to protect the Vaishyas from disturbance. And if you meet the Shudra, how do you greet them? How are you? Because they think they are the body. That this is the most important. How are you enjoying? Kama is very important for a Shudra. How is your family life? Are you having enough enjoyment? Are you going on vacation? How was your last vacation? So, and how do you greet a devotee? How's your japa? How's your service? How's your preaching? How's your preaching going? So yes, this was the Varnashram system. Prabhupada called one of his disciples, the Sanskrit scholar Pradyumna, he called him Panditji. Panditji. And Sridhar tells a story that when he was first with Srila Prabhupada, he sometimes rang his bell, and when Sridhar came in, Prabhupada would ask, where is Panditji? And after several months, Pradyumna was not always coming, he was not easy to find. So Prabhupada then would call Sridhar and say, where is Banditji? Pandit and Bandit. So Prabhupada was always joking with us. So one time, Jayapataka Maharaj, one of his disciples told me that whenever her guru, Jayapataka, would meet her, he would ask the question, how is your preaching? So that was his expectation of his disciples, how's your preaching? So also we have heard that His Holiness Brahmana Swami, when he is asked, how are you? He says, better than I deserve. So that is, usually we have a list of complaints. When somebody asks, how are you? But actually, better than we deserve. We deserve, Krishna has only given us a token of our suffering. He's giving us not what we deserve. So what happens when you get a Shudra on top of the government? Then the goal will be kama, sense gratification. In the 50s, the President of the United States, he had a slogan, if you elect me to be President, I will give you 2 cars in every garage and a chicken in every pot. So that was his slogan. Kama, sense gratification. If you get a Vaishya on top of the government, then money, economic development, that is the goal. That is the goal of your government. If you're making a lot of money, if you have no debts, then you consider that your goal is achieved. If you have a Kshatriya on top of the administration, justice, righteousness, dharma, religiousness, this is the goal, that the criminals are punished, that the good citizens are protected, and the wealth is distributed equally to everyone. And if you get a Brahmana on top of government, then the goal will be moksha, it will be liberation. The goal will be going back to home, back to Godhead, if he's a Vaishnava. So all of the orders are needed. We need the arms to protect us, we need the eyes to see, we need the brain for guidance, we need the legs to take us places, and we need the stomach. So in the same way, all of the varnas and ashrams, they are interdependent, they are all necessary to make the society work smoothly. So Dharma Varnashram, what is the difference between spiritual Varnashram and demoniac Varnashram? Actually, the goal is different. In the Dharma Varnashram, the goal is to please the Supreme Lord. And everyone can cooperate together to help each other spiritually advance. And anyone in any of the Varnas can become a devotee and worship the Lord. Nobody is stopped. That was the problem in India in the previous, in the past, that the Brahmanas were keeping the lower classes down. Because the basis of one's Varna was your birth, not what your qualities are. But in the Dharma Varnashram, the basis is your character, your qualities, and your work. Just like when I was living in India, in Goa, I used to drive a moped. And who was servicing my moped? He was Brahmana by birth, he had a Brahman thread, but he was covered head to foot in grease. So this was not the work of a Brahman. Not the work of a Brahman. People were calling him Panditji. But I would just say, how's my moped doing? You know, is it fixed now? Did you fix my moped, Panditji? You know, but he was not doing the work of the Brahman. And so the work must be there. I see also in Vrindavan rickshawalas who are wearing the Brahman thread, Panditji. So the basis of Varna is not birth. The basis is your character, your qualities, your training. And not birth, your work. And so, and the goal is different too. In the materialistic Asuric Varnashram, they want to organize orderly society for social prestige. Help people advance to higher material planets, if possible, and a better life in your next life. Now, there is another kind of Varnashram. It is called spontaneous Varnashram. And that is what we find all over the world, that there are people who naturally want to teach, naturally want to be the Prime Minister and President, naturally do Shuddha work, and naturally do business. So that's a natural Varnashram. We see that all over the world, that people, they just do according, and the ones, actually our society is geared towards the Shudras. They are training people in the colleges to be dependent on others. They cannot be independent. They have to get money. They have to get a job. So if you get a job, that means you're doing the work of a Shudra, actually. But the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, the Brahmanas, they did not need to get a job. They could just live on their own abilities. The Vaishyas, they can make money. Just like Prabhupada, there was one story Prabhupada told about one man in Calcutta. During the plague, he had no money and he went to borrow money from his relative. And the relative said, "You're a Vaishya. You don't need to borrow money. There is money on the street." And in those days, if you brought a dead rat, dead or alive, to the city, they would give you 10 paisa. They would give you money. He said, go and get your money. So he did that. He went and he started collecting rats. Then he got money and he made a little pawn shop. And now he's one of the richest people. He has a jewelry, gold and silver jewelry business in Calcutta. So Vaishyas, they don't need to depend. My son also, he started a business last year, a few months ago. Nobody gave him any money. And in a few months, he had a few $1,000s. This is Vaishya. Brahmana also, he can do his work as a Brahmana, and he doesn't need to depend. And the Kshatriya also, he can do his work, he can conquer kingdoms, and he is not dependent, he doesn't need a job. But the other, of course, the way our society is now, everybody, even the Kshatriya gets a salary. And so it's completely perverted. It's not the... So Daiva Varnashram is probably wanted to establish that. So the result of the materialistic Varnashram is injustice, exploitation, suffering. Prithu Maharaj again in Bhagavatam, in 4:25-24, he says, any king who does not teach his citizens Varnashram, who simply takes tolls and taxes, must suffer for the impious activities which the citizens have performed. And the king loses his own good fortune. So, one last thing I would like to inform you about is at the beginning of creation, Lord Brahma created 4 ashramas to uphold the 4 pillars of religion. So what are the 4 pillars of religion? According to 3rd Canto, 12th chapter, verse 41, education, charity, penance, and truth. So education is for the brahmacharis. They are meant to uphold the pillar of education. Charity is for the grihastas, for the married people. They must give in charity. Penance, austerity is for the vanaprasthas. They must show the austere life. And truth is for the sannyasis. They must enlighten everyone with the truth. So these are the 4 pillars of religion. In the 1st canto, it's a little different. Instead of education, it says cleanliness. And instead of charity, it says mercy. But charity is mercy, actually. The mercy of the grihastas is they give in charity. So these are the 4 pillars of religion. If we actually uphold them, then we can make progress in life. So a few things, I can give some examples. Even in previous ages, there was one boy who went to Gautam Muni, who's a great sage. And this sage would only accept those who are Brahmins for his disciples. But this boy, he was actually a prostitute's son. And so he said, please make me your disciple. So his guru said, who is your father? And he says, I don't know. So he said, ask your mother. He went and asked his mother, my dear son, I don't know who is your father. So he went back and he told Gautam Muni, my mother also doesn't know who is my father. So Gautam Muni said, you are a Brahmin because you're telling the truth. Nobody could tell such a truth except the Brahmin. And so even in previous ages, people from lower classes were accepted as Brahmins if they had quality of the Brahmin. And so when Prabhupada was preaching in one Western country, it was Europe, Paris, 1973. He was talking with a professor, and Prabhupada said, we are creating Brahmanas in the Western countries. So the professor said, don't you think that is against the Dharma Shastras? So Prabhupada said, if the symptoms of a Brahmin are found in a Shuddha, he should be accepted as a Brahmin. And he quoted Bhagavad Gita, Chaktarvanya Mayashishtam Guna Karma Vibhavishana. So even in Lord Chaitanya's time, people were criticizing that Lord Chaitanya, he accepted Haridas Thakur, a Muslim, as the Namacharya. He accepted Rupa Goswami, who was rejected from the Brahmana society. Rupa Goswami was writing scriptures, Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. So how? Prabhupada also applied the same principle that people in the Malecha and Malecha countries, he gave them Brahmana initiation, he gave women Brahmana initiation. So when we were in India, in the beginning, some people were criticizing, oh no, how can you do puja? You must first change your body, leave this body, get born in the Brahmin family, and then you can do puja. So Prabhupada answered that objection in one purport of Srimad Bhagavatam. He said that, yes, when we take initiation, we are changing our body, we're changing our subtle body. When we chant Hare Krishna, we're changing our subtle body. So we're no longer Shudras, we're no longer Malachas. We are on the spiritual platform by initiation, by chanting. By the chanting, it dissolves our material subtle body, which gave us this gross body. So yes, we have taken second birth, Dvija. When we take initiation, we take our birth, second birth. So the challenge of our life is to serve Krishna, please Krishna with whatever talents we have. In one lecture Prabhupada gave in the beginning of this movement, 1966, there were just a few young people who weren't even initiated, weren't following the rules yet. Prabhupada said to them, you must become guru. Nobody is responsible for his birth. Responsibility is to advance in Krishna consciousness. If you want to go back to Godhead, there's no impediment. It doesn't depend on your material body. It is open for everyone. The chance is given. You can become a Brahmana, you can become a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and you can become spiritual master of the whole world. Prabhupada said this in 1966. So now it's our 50th anniversary next week of ISKCON, 1966, July 13th. Or July 28th, according to the calendar of the moon. So this year we're celebrating that 50th anniversary. So this is another thing to celebrate, how he told all of us that you can become Brahmana, you can become Guru, you can become spiritual master of the whole world. You just surrender to Krishna and chant Hare Krishna. Jai, any questions or comments on this verse? Yes?
Thank you very much, Mataji. This continuous discussion in ISKCON, different forms, how they establish Varnashram.
How to establish Varnashram.
Can you elaborate more on that?
Pardon me?
Can you elaborate more on that?
Elaborate how to establish Varnashram in ISKCON. Well, the basis, we have to see what is the foundation of Varnashram. And as I quoted, Samsidir Haridhoshana. So the foundation is that, the goal is that we develop our love for Krishna. So that means whatever talent or ability we have, we can use it for Krishna. And of course, Varnashram without cow protection, without farms, there's no meaning also. For those in the city, it will have to be applied in a different way. But actually, Prabhupada did want these farms established, and I believe that is going on now in some parts of the world. And but when he first started ISKCON, he wanted the whole ISKCON to be Brahmins, that they should be the guidance of the rest of the society. And the rest of those who are not, who cannot chant and And here, you cannot follow the regulative principles for them Varnashram, because otherwise there's no connection. They cannot, in Bhagavad Gita, in the 12th chapter, he says, always think of me. If you cannot do that, follow the Bhakti Yoga principles. Then verse 10 is, well, verse, yeah, so 8, 9, 10. Verse 10, he says, if you cannot follow the Bhakti Yoga principles, then do some work for Varnashram. So when Prabhupada was leaving his body in 1977, there is the quote that is very famous, 50% I have not established yet. And that quote was written in one of our Vyasa Puja books by His Holiness Bhakti Chand Maharaj. He was the one who heard Prabhupada say that, and he recorded it. And Prabhupada said to him, yes, 50% of my mission is not finished. For those who cannot be devotees, we need Varnashram. They will stay in their position, and they can also advance their spiritual life and serve Krishna. So, the point is that we don't want to take someone who is already on the level of Bhakti Yoga and say, okay, now you have to follow Varnashram. You cannot do chanting and hearing. And some people think that's Varnashram, but that's not Varnashram. Varnashram means if you can follow the regulative principles, and I don't know how many can follow those 4 regulative principles, if you can spend your life, your whole day and night chanting Hare Krishna and serving Krishna, then do that. But if you can't, then follow the Varnashram system and take up an occupation. And you can make your life perfect by that occupation if you give the results to Krishna. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much for it. I didn't heard all, but I'd like to kind of, if you could a little elaborate it, how you see that ISKCON has developed from the active preaching movement as it is generally now.
How has ISKCON developed?
Developed from the early 70s active preaching movement, what is now and what should we do now?
How has it developed?
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, as Prabhupada said, he didn't force us to follow the rules of Varnashram at all. We simply chanted Hare Krishna, and that was it. We chanted Hare Krishna and distributed books, and we lived, everybody lived in the temple. Doesn't matter, you were married, brahmacharis, sannyasi, everybody was together in the temple. And everybody gave all their money. We were all living like sannyasis in the beginning. So he just made one thing for everyone. If you lived outside, you were in money.
And now sannyasis are giving all the money to the movement.
Yeah, we had to give 100%. Now, if you read Prabhupada's purports, he says sannyasis, brahmacharis, vanaprasthas should give 100%. Grihasthas should give 50%. But we gave 100%. Of course, most of us didn't have much, so it didn't mean much. We were hippies. But I remember I had one possession. I had a cello. I was a musician, and I sold it to pay the rent for the temple. 1 month, half the rent. So we were expected to give everything when we joined the temple. But then gradually, as the brahmacharis got married, there were more grihasthas. And the grihasthas started to move out from the temple and have their own places. So then it became different. You could then 50% for the grihasthas at that time. But even the grihasthas were preaching. They were expected to go on book distribution and harinam. The babies were put in the nursery or in Gurukul at a very young age. And so then they were free to preach up as long as Prabhupada was here, and I think a few years after too. It kept going like that, the momentum was going. But then many things happened, and now nobody is in the temple, everybody is outside pretty much. Very few are living in the temple. So therefore, it is more like a Varnashram already. People have gone to their natural level. Before Prabhupada brought us all up to the level of sannyasi, brahmachari, even me, myself, my husband and I, we didn't have any children for 12 years. I was in the ladies' ashram, he was in the brahmachari ashram. Huh?
It was still the same in early 90s here in Finland.
Yeah, yeah. So, first 12 years, I had my child when I was 39. You know, so that was because I gave we gave our youth for Krishna. It was expected. But now it's different, so we have to adapt. But the thing is, you cannot force anyone that, okay, you have to give 50%. No, it is. Now, the Grihastha Vision team has a very nice course where one of the classes is all about budgeting. How you need to pay all your necessities, then how you need to save, like in case you want to go to India or to education, Bhakti Shastri or something. You need to save for certain things that you need, like a new car or something. But Grihasthas. But then they say at least 10% you should give in charity. And then they talk about, some people say, I don't have money. Well, this is poverty consciousness. And that's one thing I also, since I took that course, I never used to give in charity. I always thought, oh, I don't have enough money. And now, even though I live by begging and by selling my books, I try to give a little something to the deities wherever I go. In the donation box. It's a very good habit to get in the habit of giving charity. If you read the purports, Prabhupada says 50% for Grihasthas, 100% for sannyasis, brahmacharis, and vanaprasthas. Yeah, we never had money. We didn't have our own money while we were living in the temple for the first 18 years until we moved out. So that was it's quite changed. Big change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a different movement.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a different movement. And the temples were full. The temples were full of devotees, bursting. So it worked, but now it's different. It's quite changed. And so people find their own level. Some people, we were all a Brahminical level, then some went down to Vaishya, some went down to Shudra, some went down to Kshatriya level. Everyone found, Prabhupada brought us up to the top, and then everyone found their level, where we see afterwards. All the brahmacharis got married, even some of the sannyasis. But anyway, Prabhupada was very powerful. It was very powerful to keep us on the Brahminical level, even though a lot of us didn't have that qualification to be Brahmins. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
How do you see, what is like the proper balance in austerity? Because
Balance in
I
austerity.
would say like for example, still when we joined, there was too strong Mayavadistic concept of throwing everything out. Like
Yeah,
that.
right.
And same with the opulence, ISKCON has been, at least I could say here, more like against the opulence. But it doesn't, these two things, if they are on the imbalanced state, it doesn't create an, how would I call it, attraction, which is the kind of the beginning.
Austerity versus opulence.
Yeah. So how do you see this?
Well, Prabhupada always wanted nice temples because it's not for us, it's for the people to come. He said if I were to sit under a tree in Mayapur, nobody would come. But that's why I built the temple. He said I built these nice temples, and he built the residence before the temple. He said because these Westerners are not used to living under the tree or living in the hut. So he built the nice residential quarters even before the temple. Now we're building the temple. Now there's so much residential quarters, now the temple is finally coming. But Prabhupada, he first took care of the devotees. And the people who were visitors were coming. If you don't have the opulent temple, then the people will not be attracted to come. But for the devotees, then Prabhupada said we just have some little prasadam, a place to stay, and some service. And we're satisfied with that. So we have a different standard. The opulence is not for us to enjoy. And that's what happened with the Gaudiya Math. They build opulent temples and then they start fighting over the rooms. This will be my room, this will be my room. So, yeah. So we have, yeah, the balance has to be there. Everything for Krishna, and that was our feeling. We were sacrificing everything for the people and for Krishna. And we didn't expect anything. None of those book distributors in America took anything for themselves. They didn't take anything. Jai, Hare Krishna, thank you for coming. They didn't take anything for themselves. I remember one of them came and she had to come barefoot from America to Mayapur because she had lost her shoes and she didn't have any money to buy shoes. So she came barefoot on the airplane and someone bought her some shoes in India. It was like that, even though she was making thousands of dollars on the book distribution, but they didn't take any money for themselves. So it was a very surrendered consciousness.
Shall I still?
Okay, last point.
Last point. Like, I mean, speaking philosophically, also the sense gratification has been, that's always a challenge.
Yes.
But there has been like kind of that thing, referred to early 90s that when they were very strict with the whole thing, then either or flew out, when the lady went out or the man went out. It was just, some other habits they had before. Meaning like...
you mean when they left Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, so either or left. So then we took the pendulum into the other direction and now nobody cares and then they are so loose. So,
yeah.
But just the up to the standard thing is also kind of take some time.
Actually, the difference now and then is that when you came to the temple, when I first came, they always had something for me to do.
Yeah.
You could not leave the temple.
Yeah, that was
Now you come to the temple and maybe nobody will even see you. So there are people out there who want to join. Like I did this program on Tuesday. Very philosophically, very interested people were there. And if we had something for them to do, they would do it. But we don't have, we need to engage people.
That was the mood was that
Yes.
you couldn't sit almost down. It was
I mean, I kept trying, I would come to the temple, they said, now you can't go, now it's time for class. I said, okay, class. Okay, now you can't go, now it's prasadam time. Oh, no, now you can't go. Now we have to wash this, do this, do some flower garlands. You couldn't leave the temple, they had engagement, and I think that is the key. That's what is the difference. There was full engagement. 24 hours, they would have you do something, some practical service, and then you get purified, and then you advance.
And I kind of glad, like I was kind of, married at this kind of, they used even, the ladies to cultivate man, which was more pleasant than,
Yeah, right.
But like that was considerations of the kind of situation. But we dare to say no.
Right. Okay, so we'll stop here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
God praise Narayani Mataji.
Srila Prabhupada ki.